Hello guys, this is part 50 of SQL Server. In this session, we will learn about updatable common table expression. Before continuing with this session, I strongly recommend to watch part 49 of this video series where we had discussed the basics of common table expression. We know that a common table expression is a temporary result set. It can be considered as a derived table. Now, is it possible to update a CTE? The answer is yes and no. Under certain circumstance, you can update a CTE, but under certain other circumstance, you cannot do that. We will explore the scenario where we can update a CTE and also where we cannot. Let's look at an example. We have this TBL employee table which has got ID, name, gender and department ID columns. Now let's say we want to create a CTE on this table. Which returns just the ID, name, gender. Which returns ID, name, gender. And gender, that ID, name and gender, that you can see on the right hand side here. So obviously we know that to create a CTE, we use the with keyword. And then we give it a meaningful name, employee's name, gender, because this CTE returns name, gender. So employee's name, gender. So employee name, gender as, and then CTE query, and then CTE query. This is the CTE query itself. CTE query itself. So select what are the columns we required. ID, name, gender. So ID, name, gender. So ID, name, gender. From TBL employee. From TBL employee table, and you are giving that temporary result set. That temporary result set, a name, employee name, gender, that's it about, that is about it. So when you created this CTE, all you are doing here is select star from CTE. Select star from CTE, which would return ID, name, gender. From TBL employee, as you can see on the right hand side. ID, name, gender, as you can see on the right hand side. Now, is it possible to update this CTE? Absolutely. Let's look at that. So here what we are doing, let's look at that. So here what we are doing, I mean it is the same CTE. You know, this CTE is pretty much similar to this one. This CTE is pretty much similar to this one. Except that here you are selecting from that CTE. Except that you are select from that CTE. Except that you are selecting from that CTE, but here you are updating the CTE. So you are saying with employee's name, gender as select ID, name, gender from TBL employee. Now, instead of saying select star from employee name, gender, you are actually updating the CTE. So when you update the CTE, does this actually update the underlying table? In this case, TBL employee. So here you are setting the gender. So here you are setting the gender to female for the record with the ID is equal to 1. With ID is equal to 1. So if you look at the record here, ID is equal to 1 is ID is equal to 1 is John. ID is equal to 1 is John record, and he is a male at the moment. But then when I update this, we basically changing John's gender from male to female. So when you update the CTE, look at this. Look at this. We are not directly updating the record. We are not directly updating the table TBL employee. We are updating this CTE. We are updating this CTE. So when you update the CTE, does it actually update the TBL employee table? Yes, it does. So when you actually execute this update statement, update statement along with the CTE, it actually changes John's gender from male to female. And this is from TBL employee table. This is the base table. All right. So if a CTE is created on one base table, here is the CTE is based on just TBL employee. Here CTE is based on TBL employee. TBL employee table. Then it is possible to update the CTE, which in turn will actually update the underlying base table. The underlying base table. In this case, we are updating employee's name, gender. We are updating employee name's gender. CTE, which is actually updating TBL employee table, which is actually updating the TBL employee table. Let's look at this in action. So we have this TBL employee and TBL department table. So go to the SQL Server Management Studio. So we have TBL employee and TBL department table. But then we are going to create CTE on TBL employee table. Now look at this, the select query. Now look at this select query. Returns ID, name, gender from TBL employee. So execute it. So this select query returns ID, name, gender from TBL employee. Okay, so for this temporary result set, you are just giving a name called TBL, called employee name gender. Okay, for this temporary result set, you are just giving a name, employee's name gender, name called employee name gender. So obviously when you execute this, since this CTE is returning an ID, name, gender, we get that. So execute it. So this city is returning ID, name, gender. We get that ID, name, gender in the result set. Now let's see how to update this CTE. So you have the same CTE. So you have the same CTE, but instead of saying select star from that, from that employee name gender, you are actually saying update. Employee's name gender, set gender is equal to female, where ID is equal to 1. So currently John's gender is male. We are basically changing that to female with this update statement, with this CTE. So you are actually updating the CTE, and this CTE should update the TBL employee table. Let's look at that. One row affected. Now let's check the TBL employee table itself. You should see now John's gender is female. All right, so select star from TBL employee. Now you should see now John's gender. Executed. John gender is equal to John gender is female. All right. So if a CTE is based on one base table, then it is possible to update the CTE, which in turn will update the underlying table. Underline base table. Now let's look at a scenario when a city is based on when a city is based on two base table. Now I have two tables here, TBL employee table and TBL department table. And then I want to create a CTE. Which would return ID, name, gender from TBL employee table, department name from TBL department table. So obviously this CTE has to have two base table. So obviously this CTE has to have two base table. Okay, so we are creating employee by department. So we are creating employee by department CTE. Here as what you are selecting here, ID, name, gender, department name, and this is pretty simple join query. You are joining TBL employees with with TBL department on department ID, columns, which is common between these two tables. And we are basically selecting ID, name, gender and department name column, okay, for this temporary result set. We are actually giving a name employees by department. We are actually giving a name employees by department. So this CTE is based on two base table. Okay, but then if you look at the update statement, So update employees by department, which is nothing but the CTE, So we are updating the CTE, set gender is equal to 1. Though the CTE is based on two base tables, we are only updating gender. Which is coming from TBL employees, employee table. So you are only updating, this update statement affects only TBL employee table. You are actually changing the gender to male from record with ID is equal to 1. So here John gender. So here John gender is now female. John's gender is now female because we have changed that before. We are trying to change it back to male. We are trying to change it back to male using this CTE. Using this CTE. So if a CTE is based on more than one table, that is what this is situation here. That is what this is situation here. This CTE is based on 2 base table. This CTE is based on 2 base table. And if the update affects only one base table, and if the update affects only one base table, then the update is allowed. Okay, let's look at that in actions. So we have this CTE. So we have this CTE. The same query that we saw in the slide. The same query that we saw in the slide. We are selecting ID, name, gender, department name. We are selecting ID, name, gender from TBL from TBL employee table and department name from TBL department table by joining them on the department ID. By joining them on the department ID column. So that is the CTE. You should give us the output that we have actually seen on the slide. So select this. Execute it. So we should give us the output that we have actually seen on the slide. So now let's try to change John's gender from female to male. From female to male. So instead of saying select star from TBL by department, from employees by department, the CTE is exactly the same here. the CTE is same here, exactly the same here to here. Instead of select star from CTE, we are updating the CTE. We are updating the CTE. So update employees by department, set gender is equal to male, where ID is equal to 1. In this case, ID is equal to 1 is John record. John's record. So let's update this. So let's update this. One row affected. Now let's check the employees table. If it has actually changed John's gender from female to male. So you should see that. John's gender changed from female to male. So execute this. So here you can see John's gender is now changed from female to male. So if a CTE is based on 2 tables and if the update statement affects only one base table, then the update is allowed. All right, let's look at another scenario. So the CTE here is based on two base table, just like before. Okay, it is the same CTE, but then if you look at the update statement, it is updating the gender. It is changing the gender to female, and it is also changing the department name column. So if you look at this in this CTE, it has got 2 columns. Gender and department name. Okay, so gender and department name, we know that this gender is coming from TBL employee table. The gender is coming from TBL employee table. And department name is coming from TBL department table. So obviously when you execute this update statement, on this CTE, this update will actually affects TBL employee and TBL department tables. Okay, both the tables. So if a CTE is based on multiple tables, and if the update statement affects more than one base table, then the update is not allowed. Let's try to do this and see what actually happens. So here we have a CTE. That is based on two base tables. The same CTE that we have been working with the TBL employee and TBL department, which returns ID, name, gender, and department name columns. But then if you look at the update statement, we are changing the gender and department name. So obviously this update statement affects TBL employee and TBL department tables. So when we try to execute this, let's see what is going to happen. We get an error. So view or function employees by department is not updatable because the modification affects multiple base tables. So basically, if a CTE is based on multiple tables, and if the update statement affects more than one base table, then the update is not allowed. There is one more scenario. Before we conclude. Okay, so if a CTE is again based on two tables, two or more tables actually, and then if the update affects only one base table, let's understand the scenario. It is the same CTE. That we have been working with. Okay, so ID, name, gender from TBL employee table, and department name from TBL department table. So obviously this CTE is based on more than one base table. Now if you look at this update statement, so update employee by department, set department name is equal to IT, So basically what you are saying, when you are saying update this employees by department, this is the CTE. This is the CTE, basically saying department name is equal to IT, basically saying department name is equal to IT, set department name is equal to IT, where ID is equal to 1. So you are basically telling, okay, change John's department name from HR to IT. So basically telling, okay, change John's department name from HR to IT. You are basically telling that. But then before we execute this update query, let's look at Ben's department as well. Ben is also in the HR department. So Ben and John are in the HR department before we executed this update query. Now as soon as I have updated this, now we know that if a CTE is based on multiple base tables, now we know that if a CTE is based on multiple base tables, and if the update statement affects only one base table, then the update is allowed. Update is allowed. Okay, so obviously this update will succeed. But then after you execute this, it changes John's department. It changed John department to IT, which is good. But then look at it, what happens to Ben's department. It is also changed to IT before this update statement. Ben's department was HR, and I told to change here only John's department to IT because I specified ID is equal to 1. ID is equal to 1 is John. But why did Ben's department name changed as soon as I have executed this update statement? That is because here you are saying this update statement to actually change the department name to IT, where ID is equal to 1. So John department name is currently HR. So what is going to happen is when this update statement is executed, It actually changes, look at this department number 3. Look at this department number 3. HR. Okay, which means Jones is currently has got department ID 3, which means HR. But when this statement is completed, when you execute this, what is happening is it is actually changing, this label. It is actually, changing this label HR to IT. So it will be like this TBL department. Will be like this TBL department. So number 3, IT. Department ID 3 is now changed from HR to IT. So obviously anybody who has got 3, as the department ID, all of them will be shown as if they belong to, IT department. That is the reason why Ben is also shown as if he belongs to, IT. IT department here. Okay. So if a city is based on more than one base table, and if the update affects only one base table, then update succeeds, but not as expected always. It may works correctly in some cases, but in this case, the update is not working as we expected to work. Our intention is to basically change, when you are saying change this CTE such that, the department name of John is changing from HR to IT. HR to IT. John's department name John department is changing from HR to IT. When you say that behind the scenes, it should actually update, John's department ID from 3 to 1, because 1 is IT, 3 is HR. But instead, what it did, it actually changed the label name in TBL department table from HR to IT, because of which any employee who has got the department ID of 3 will now be shown as if they belong to IT department, which is incorrect. We did not expect it to do that. So obviously when you update a CTE, there are several scenarios. If a CTE is based on a single base table, then the update succeeds and works as expected. Expected always. But if a CTE is based on more than one base table, and if the update affects multiple base tables, the update is not allowed and the statement terminates with an error. If a CTE is based on more than one base table, and if the update affects only one base table, the update succeeds. But not as expected always. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Have a great day. But before that, I also want to show you once again the creation of the table, because lots of people ask how to create the table for TBL employee and TBL department table. So here is the creation of the table. As you can see, I have created this. Okay, this is the department table. Department ID in primary key, department name and varchar 50, create table TBL employee, ID in primary key, name and varchar 50, gender and var 20, department ID int. There is the constraint foreign key, TBL employee, department foreign key, department ID, reference TBL department ID. Okay guys, that's it guys for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.